Well, hello, welcome to our reading of selections from Herodotos, and I'm just going to read through the selections at the moment from Book 1, and I'm going to skip forward to chapter 79, where we take up the story of Cyrus and Kroisos. They have fought a little battle, and Kroisos has scampered off. The Kyros de Autica aper laonontos Kroisou, metaten maken ten genomenein ente Pterie, methon hos apelassas meloi Kroisos diaskedan ton straton. Boulomenos heurisce pragma hoi enai elaunen hos dunai totakista epitas Sardis. Prin tot deuteron halisthenai ton ludon ten dunamin. So we get a genitive absolute here from apolauno, to drive away. So when Cyrus was driving away after the battle, the one which took place, the one which happened, we get an aorist participle here from ginomai, the one which took place in Pterie. Cyrus immediately, having learned, aorist from Manthano, having learned that, Cyrus, having driven away, this is now the aorist participle from this apolauno we had above. So having learned that Kroisos, I should say, having driven away, meloi, it's an optative from mellow, takes a future participle, future infinitive. So was about diaskedan. This is a future infinitive from diaskedanumi, which literally has the idea of scattering and hence to disband. So he was about to disband the army. So when he'd learnt all that, boulomenos, taking, giving it some thought, so deliberating might be a good word there. Heurisce, there's a funny expression here, heurisce pragma hoi enai. Literally, he discovered it to be a matter for him. So he discovered it, or realized that it was his business. It's pretty close to saying he discovered that it would be a good thing. It would be an advantage for him. Elaunein, to drive, hos dunai totakista, as quickly as possible, as quickly as he was able. Again, we get we're going to get an optative here. To drive against, epi plus accusative, against Sardis. This is the accusative from Sardis. Prin a tot deuteron halisthenai. So before the force, the dunamin of the Lydians, halisthenai is an aorist passive infinitive from halisdo, meaning something like to assemble or to regroup, perhaps. So before the power of the Lydians, the force of we would say the Lydian force, a second time, this tot deuteron is adverbial, so before the Lydian force regrouped or assembled a second time. Hos de hoi taute edoxe kai epoi katatakos. And when these things, this is a subject here, neuter plural singular verb, when these things seemed good hoi to him, also he began to do them katatakos as quickly as he could. So once he'd realized this was a good idea, he got onto it very quickly. Elassas, gar in brackets ton straton es ten ludionautos angelos Kroiso el le luthee. Now, elassas again is from elauno, it's the aorist participle from elauno, to drive, for he, having driven his army into Lydia, It's a funny little bit, this one. He himself literally had arrived as a messenger to Kroisos. So presumably this means that Kroisos saw him coming. He was basically his own messenger. This is a pluperfect here, perhaps denoting the state of events. So he himself had come as a messenger to Kroisos. En thauta Kroisos es aporein polein apigmenos, hos hoi paradoxan escita pregmata, hos autos cat edocie, homos tus lidus ex age es maken. And there, Kroisos, having arrived there, now we get en thauta in Attic, it would be en tautha. You get this interchange of aspirates here, so en tautha in Ionic becomes en thauta. So Kroisos, having arrived there in much despondency, or it could be there, or at this point, Kroisos had arrived in a state of much despondency. Hos, probably since the affairs literally were, this is from Echo, so were having, contrary to the paradox, we get our word paradox here, contrary to the opinion than he himself thought. So against the opinion, against the view than he himself thought. So it's rather idiomatic here. We would just paraphrase it in English. He arrived there in much despondency, since the affairs had turned out to be much to the contrary to what he himself was thinking. From katadocio is just to think. So it's to a different opinion than as he himself, literally. Homos there, nevertheless, ex age, he led out the Lydians to battle. Ein de teuton ton chronon ethnos, keep that there, uden ente arceae uti andre ioteron uti alchemoteron to Lydiu. So there was at that time, now uden ethnos, so the uden goes with the ethnos from the previous page. Ethnos is neuter. So there was no race in Asia, that was neither more brave, more manly, perhaps more warlike. This is a comparative here from Andreios, and we see that this will be a long syllable beforehand, and we get a short O. Nor one more valiant, and that's because here we have a short syllable, and so we get a long omega. It's a good example of how the comparatives form. If you've got a long syllable, you get oteron, and a short syllable, you get oteron. So there was in Asia no race that was neither more brave or manlike or perhaps warlike, nor more valiant, from alchimos, than the Lydians. He demache spion ein ap hippon, dorata te ephorion megala kai autoi esin hippuestai agathoi. Literally, the battle of them. So in other words, perhaps their mode of battle was from horses, from horseback, and ephorion, they used to carry dorata, megala. So this is doru, it literally was originally wood, but it means a spear. So they used to carry great spears, and they themselves were good, hippuesthai, infinitive here, so it's being used almost like a dative here. So they themselves were very good at horsemanship, at riding in a cavalry, so good at horsemanship. And that's section 79, and we'll continue this in another recording.